Talking to this morning, guys, as you can see, all very, very popular, growing businesses, but all very, very different. So remind you that if you have any questions for the guys, can you start texting them in or tweeting them in or whatever needs to happen. But just picking up on James's point there, the thing that I'm interested in, there's such diversity in the business models across this group. Are you all servicing the same customers? Can you tell us a little bit about who your customers are? How old are they? Where are they coming from? How long are they staying? Why are they choosing you? Maybe start with you, Phil, if that's okay.
Sure. The typical customer for us is probably a client that has just left your organisation and is in need of some care, or some care is imminent. So I would say physically well with low care needs increasing. So part of the market that we're attracting are those that don't want to go to an aged care facility. So the average age of our residents is in the early 80s, and the average stay of our residents is about 4.25 years. So that's a typical tall trees resident.
We're very traditional. Our average incoming age 74. Average stay, a little hard to determine because the group's only been operating for 10 years, and that's one village in particular. But from my experience, I'm going to say the average stay is going to be around about 15 to 16 years. We heard from Jen from the New South Wales Residents Association yesterday, and I met Jen afterwards and spoke to her, and after meeting Jen, I think that she's probably going to be in that village for 35 years. So look, you know, we may well have people who will stay in our villages for a lot longer than that. They typically come from the catchment. They're looking to downsize all of the traditional push factors into the village. It's about the health of the husband generally, and so very traditional in our villages, Adam.
Yep, great. You just reminded me just to let Jan know that when you do choose your next village, Jan, we have a spot for you at the Arbour. We'd love to have you. Sorry, Kim.
Yes, obviously the average age, etc., depends on the age of the village, particularly with the portfolio that I look after. We have a lot of older villages. We recognised too, before we changed our model, that we had to really know the market that we're in and understand that we are definitely targeting the older demographic. The average age in our Bribie Island community, for instance, is 89 years of age. And our average age overall is 84. That is our clientele, that's a market segment that we're looking after, and our average length of stay has reduced significantly. That was planned when we put in a range of financial planning around how the model would look and how we could make it work to help people with the services they need. So our average length of stay right now is 6 years. Our financial models actually cater for that so that we can give people the best years of their life while they're living with us. Our newer villages, average age is 81, and the average age on entry is around 78. Just for those of you that are thinking, well, you know, with the newer villages, what does that look like? We are definitely targeting a market where people accept that they may need some additional assistance supported services in the future, or they have a partner that needs that care.
I think I mentioned Adam, our average age is 66, and average stay, again, we're 10 years young, as Angus said, so we're in the early days of discovery, but we're sort of seeing 5 to 7 years. Very much our customer is the average pensioner, blue-collar worker, early white-collar worker, who honestly can't afford to get into a typical retirement village. They're really precluded because the fact that they just haven't got sufficient equity. So our customer would be typically, you know, living in an old A.V. Jennings home, 15.4 squares or something, would have, you know, the only equity they've got is what's in their home. So, you know, they might have 350, 400,000 tops in equity, no other savings, they're all pre-superannuants. And so what we're trying to offer to that sort of mass of Australia, really, I think 50% of Australians have less than 400,000, I think, or some stat like that, is an affordable option if they can't get into traditional retirement. So, and also we're very much pushing this younger message. You know, if we said to one of our residents that they call us a lifestyle village, not a retirement village, marketing must be working. If you said to them they're in a retirement village, they'd punch your lights out. Like, they're so fierce about the fact that there's a lifestyle village, it's not retirement. But I think that's probably a pretty common message through the industry in terms of perceptions.
Yeah, just there's an interesting question that's popped up that's very connected to that. We don't want to live in a retirement village. The question is for you, James. Do your places look like a retirement village?
No. We very much sit with independent homes. So, and that's one of the key marketing differences we see, is that each of our homes are 8 to 10 squares and they sit individually. So they're individual homes which the individual homeowner owns. A lot of feedback we get of people who shop our competitors is that's an attractive proposition for them. As one guy said to me, when all the units are connected, if you had a big night, you wouldn't know which one you ended up in because they all look the same, sort of thing. So what we try and market is differentiation. So each unit does look a bit different, and we have very strict design guidelines around that.
Yep. Okay, we're going to try and structure this discussion around choice. The obvious pillars are around the financial models, the services that are available, and so we will try and give it a bit of structure. But before we get there, I've got some general questions. Do you, and I'll start with you again, Phil, do you believe that increasing choice across the industry will increase penetration rates and attractiveness to customers?
Well, I was speaking with Andrew Giles a little earlier, and I pointed out to Andrew that our view is somewhat insular because we made a conscious decision 10 years ago to run our own race and get very focused on being very consumer oriented. So, as you saw from the clip, some of the things we did was we went and sat in shopping centres and spoke to people face to face and said, well, all of these various different things, what do you want? Now, what was really clear, to answer your question, was consumers wanted a far greater choice than what they had. And I think that is true today because we do surveys within our own communities with people, and as the baby boomers come through, as we come through, I think not only are we going to expect more choice, we will demand it. It'll be as simple as that. And one of the other points that came up in general conversation earlier today with the team was, how will legislation affect that? And that's probably something we could talk about a little later. But my overall view is that the consumer will drive, we as the baby boomers will drive what happens with legislation, and if we're not given choice, we'll just walk away from it.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I used to value our group's villages every year, did it for about 15 years, and it was interesting to see, even going back 15 years, those villages that were co-located with a residential care facility outperformed villages that didn't have one. I know that that's unremarkable, but it's just interesting that I think consumers have probably always wanted it. It's just that most of us didn't have the experience or the know-how to deliver those choices. Moving forward to the future, I think that it's imperative, and I've said for many years that this industry needs to understand that our role will change as they wind back residential care facilities, as we see less and less low-band care being provided. I think it's imperative that we jump into that space so that we can remain relevant to the consumers moving forward.
But do you think it will increase the industry, however they're calculated? Do you think that fundamentally providing more choices is going to increase the penetration rate of retirement living, seniors living from current point?
You asking me?
Yeah.
Look, I don't think it'll harm the penetration rate. I've got to say that it's an interesting conversation. I did some numbers for my previous employer, and in Western Australia we have to produce 225 ILUs every 8 days until the year 2020 to maintain enough accommodation choices for a 5% penetration rate. I think it was about $80 billion and across the country. And so I've got to say that really is a relevant question.
Kim?
I definitely think providing consumers with choice is going to increase penetration. I'm talking about obviously different choices and options for them. What is a retirement village? They're the big questions to ask. If you roll out retirement villages that all look the same and have the same financial models and have a standard form and all of that, is that providing consumers choice? I really don't think it is, and I think the more choice and range that you're able to provide, your financial models, the more range you're able to provide in that, the more you're likely to grow the penetration rate and appeal to a greater number of people.
Yeah, James?
Again, we're not in the care space because most of our residents are not moving for care reasons, but our assessment of it in terms of where we sit today is that with HACS packages and the like in our sort of pensioner market that we service, and with council and various other sort of services, others are in a far better place to actually provide those services than we are. That's where we sit today. Whether that changes tomorrow is another journey. It's interesting. We're a listed company now, and I talk to our institutional investors, and in terms of the institutional investors' view of things, they've got their eye very much on Ryman's and Somerset, who really are the sort of absolute darlings of the stock market at the moment in terms of investment and trading way over, their NTA. And they're very much, certainly from their perspective, voting that choice is critical in the offer if you're going to attract an institutional market, which is just interesting.